Folks, the wealth gap is growing. It's frankly getting absurd. What can you do about it? Is it something that can be reversed? Is it time to just recognize that we have two classes, the rich and the poor? We're going to have this conversation with the three amigos. Dion, wealth gap, man. What's going on? This is something that's big time for you.
I like how you came to me first, and we usually go to whoever shows up first. But you heard what Matt was saying before we hit record, and you know he's going to be worth waiting for.
Yeah,
he's smart. We know this about him.
Yeah.
So I've got like 3 or 4 reasons why the wealth gap exists, and why I think the wealth gap will only get bigger with things like AI and the job changes in the future, and the people who are refusing to go and get a trade that can't be replaced as quickly.
Well, let's show the wealth gap, because I think we hear about it, but I don't think people really talk about it. So you found this chart, something I've seen and talked about many times, but lay it out for us. So here's the wealth gap.
So most people will say, because where this comes from, the reference is people say the middle class is shrinking.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think people realize what a good thing that is.
Mm-hmm.
The middle class is called a middle class trap for a reason. It's work 40 years for 40 hours a week to retire on 40% of what you made if you're lucky when you're too old to enjoy it. Have a big house with a bunch of debt and a big car with a bunch of debt so you look successful, versus the upper income, the people who probably acquire assets, have some of their income not come from selling their life 1 hour at a time, possibly retire earlier. Like that's the bracket that's increasing more than any of the other brackets, right? The lower income did increase, and I think some of that's incentivized. Mm-hmm. You can get these programs, housing subsidies, child daycare subsidies, food, healthcare, unless you're productive. So try not to get stuck in either of those categories. And I think if we pay attention to the things we're going to talk about in this video about why there's a wealth gap, and my first one I'll cover is it really comes down to choices.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Go ahead. I was just going to say this chart is so telling, because again, doomers could take this chart and basically say the middle class is growing or shrinking. Excuse me. You could say something like the middle class in the last 50 years is down 15+%. That is technically accurate. However, they won't say that the upper income, aka the rich, is up 50%, because that would distort their line of thinking. So I like this. Let's bring Matt into this. We'll look at this chart with him, and we'll drop it so we can get into all of the reasons. But Matt, you promised an interesting take. There's blood in the water. Let the shark go. What do you got?
Yeah, canceled in 3, 2, 1. The issue, what we're actually looking at here is we are looking at people winning more at a 50% clip. Yes. What we're also looking at is losers losing more. And why? It's because losers lose. The expansion of government programs, the expansion of handouts is often what drives the poorer part of the economy. And so these people that are low income and more poor, they still have iPhones, they still have Xboxes, they still have PS3s. None of these things existed in 1971. So I'd like to see more of a decade by decade thing, because you'll actually see the bump that technology gives you. But what we're really seeing here is something that's really asset based. You know, Bitcoin, none of these things, all of these things created many, many, many millionaires that didn't exist before. And they were, quite frankly, many of them in Bitcoin got lucky. They did. They flat out got lucky. They might have bought it at $2,000 a coin, $3,000 a coin. At $105,000 a coin, you don't need to have bought 100 coins to be really wealthy. You could actually have bought just 10 if you believe in it. And at 2,000, it was a thing, right? It was a known entity at that point. Yeah, I'm not talking the $20 guys. I'm talking the $2,000, $3,000, even $5,000 guys, right? They're 20x their wealth. So now they're in the wealthier section of things. But I would applaud a chart like that in any economy, because you've actually had a 50% growth in wealthy, and it's because they did it on their own. They did it with assets. And I would also say this is a perfect case study for why programs largely don't work, because the lower end of the spectrum is not getting more entrenched in the middle class. They're taking more things, and that equates to them living on poverty because they're only taking things. This is the least valuable generation when it comes to the workforce that we've ever had. Try hiring anybody. Any small business knows most people will take somebody that can fog a mirror and say, if I can just get them to show up and be somewhat functional, we're good. So I look at the quality of person and employee over that time, and that's, I think, your biggest difference.
It's really funny when I look at that chart. My mind goes to this game could be won by anybody.
Of course,
right? All three of us grew up on the lower end of that scale, right? My mother was a stay-at-home mom. My dad didn't have a high or a college education until very late when he got his executive MBA. And we were strapped, right? In my family, if dad was happy, it meant we had money, and if dad wasn't, and we didn't a lot, he was just a pain to be around. And Dion, you've talked about living in homes, other people's homes until they found out, and squatters basically. Matt, you've talked about going to the McDonald's for the dollar menu, and right, all three of us, we were born with no silver spoon in our mouth. And the thing that I love about that chart is if you just step back and appreciate it, the game could be won by anybody. And I talk to 12 millionaires every week that prove that. And the biggest thing to me is the rules are really simple. Yeah. The rules are bust your ass, create discretionary income, take those seeds, plant those seeds, water those seeds, let the seeds grow. And over the next decade, you're going to be freaking wealthy. It's just mind numbing to me that people don't see that. So Dion, we'll go back to you. You've got some thoughts and reasons. Go for it.
Yeah, so I think one of the main reasons we get this wealth gap is because of people's choices and priorities. I can actually prove, and this irritates people when I say it, so I like to say it. Houses are the same price or cheaper than they were in 25 years ago, in the year 2000.
You're going to have to explain that for me, please.
Okay. So people prioritize living in the good weather. They prioritize living where they have a walkability score. They prioritize living on the coast, right? I bought a house in 2000, so 25 years ago, for $100,000. It's worth $4 now. So it's gone up 4 times in value. And people will say, well, then housing costs more now because wages haven't gone up 4 times. Right. But I bought it in a town called Yelm, Washington, that had one blinking red light, a 45-minute trip to the closest grocery store, no Walmart, no Lowe's, no Home Depot, no movie theater, no bowling alley, nothing. Those houses exist today. Go 45 minutes from the closest grocery store in almost any direction in almost every state. You'll find a $100,000 house.
Yep.
Gary, Indiana, 45 minutes from Chicago, 13,000 vacant houses. They had a BOGO. Buy a house, get one free. The city would give you a second one. But nobody wants to live there. They prioritize living where they have a walkability score, T1 internet connection. DoorDash will bring you everything. So the people that aren't willing to live in a lower cost of living area, who aren't willing to house hack in a higher cost of living area. I had a conversation with Chesla the other day, and she was talking about one of her friends. I don't want to name them, but their version of success was living in the expensive area. With other people. They weren't renting or owning. They were just in that area. That made them successful. There are people who see the world that way.
Yeah, it's just pretty wild. Matt, what are your thoughts on this?
Again, I think my focus, people that have assets. It was really interesting. I was watching some another financial thing. We know the statistic. If you're a renter in your retirement, then you have a $6,000 net worth, and if you have a house, it's $250,000. Well, now that number is more like $320K. That's more the number now. However, the other piece to this is that there's actually another number. It's the people that work that have a pension or retirement plan. And typically the value of that is about $250,000, right? How much does it cost to live? Depending on where you live, 60, 70,000 bucks a year, maybe. Yeah. But they have an average of about $250,000 in their retirement fund. So how many years does that mean you can live past retirement? Now, even when you're augmenting that with Social Security, if you're spending 60,000 bucks a year, that's about 5,000 bucks a month. And even if you're augmenting that with Social Security to a couple thousand bucks a month, you still need to be 3,000-4,000 bucks a month that you're pulling off that thing. So maybe it's not 3 years, maybe it's 5 years. But how many people living 5 years past retirement? Pretty much freaking everybody. So when your median age of death is 80 and 83 or 81 and 83, well, we're 15 years past retirement. So I think the narrative will continue to shift even more, because now those that are retiring, even with houses and with 401ks, their house is bigger and worth more than what their retirement was worth. So now you're still talking about a net worth of 600,000 or so, and then Social Security, you dabble that stuff in. Well, that still means that you're likely not living the same lifestyle that you were living when you were working, when you're now in your retirement, and forget about that and all the extra costs when you're end of lifing.
Yeah, it's funny when I think about the wealth gap. I'm reminded of a tweet that Alex Hormozy sent out. I actually saved it because I think again, it goes back to the game is easy. If you just don't hate the player, hate the game, right? And if you understand the game. So this is what Alex put out. And when did he put this out? He put this out September 6th of 2024. Rich people buy time. Poor people buy stuff. Ambitious people buy skills. Lazy people buy distractions. So I ask you, are you buying distractions? Are you buying stuff? Or are you buying time and buying skills? I think the game is that simple. And the last thing I'll say about this, again, I think life is made up of seasons. The season of grind, the season of sacrifice, the season of laser focus. It's not forever. To Dion's point at the opening, if you want, you can work for 40 years, to live on 40%, right? Work 40 hours for 40 years, live on 40. That is okay. If that's what you want to do and you live for the weekends, go nuts. But most of you watching this channel want to be somewhere between rich and wealthy. The game is simple. Find out a way to buy assets, specifically assets that produce cash flow, that have 30-year fixed rate debt, i.e. residential, and just hold. It's the lazy way to invest. Dion is so right. Dion, bring us home. Give us the rest of your list.
So I like the comedian Jimmy Carr, who does some non-comedic interviews and has some really good points. And he talked about one time that being rich is when more money wouldn't change what you do.
Yeah.
I think so. There's two things I think that are creating the wealth gap and making it worse. The first one is your algorithm is keeping you poor.
Oh, Abe, I love that you said that. So many folks want to blame the algorithm and social media. You freaking morons. You're doing that. You're watching something and the algorithm is giving you more of that. If you watch one crash, bro, one doomer, you're going to get a second and a third and a fourth. You all need to flush that shit, own that mistake. That's on you. You know how many people have come to me over the last 2 years and said I was a crash bro and doomer and I didn't even know it? You did that to yourself. You made yourself broke. It's crazy. Sorry.
No, I mean, it's really easy to explain. And here's the tech version for the people that are out there educating themselves on AI and learning how to structure a prompt. You're the prompt. The platform has a query to its AI saying, how do we keep people on the platform longer? So when you stop scrolling and you watch a video because the fear porn gets your attention, then the AI is going to go, that's what keeps them here. Give them more of it.
Yeah.
And the last one, I understood these concepts, and I'll be honest, I had to look up the words, but I know the concepts because I've got examples. But it's agency versus fatalism. Agency being the people who will take charge of their life and think, if I do these actions, there will be an outcome, versus fatalism going, life happens to me. And I don't want to ever name anybody, but my friend Brian has absolute fatalism in his life by all designs. Several kids, several baby mamas, several leased vehicles over the years, several moved for different jobs, several that job will be better. Everything he's ever done that I've seen has been, that's what happened.
Yeah.
Never, here's what I did to get the outcome I wanted.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought this up also. One of my top 3 books, it's actually listed on my website, One Rental at a Time, is Extreme Ownership. And people don't realize the power of extreme ownership. The minute you have fatalism, like Brian, you've given away all your power. The minute you own everything, you have all the power. And I don't know about you, but there is no chance on hell I'm giving some other person power over me. There's just not my mom, not my dad, not my sister, not any of my closest friends. No chance in hell. Everything that happens, I will assume personal responsibility so I can fix it. I have power. It's crazy.
Yeah, that power thing it's huge, especially when people go to asking their friends or family, I'm thinking of doing this. What should I do? The safest answer for your friends and family is always to not take action.
Do nothing.
And it's not that they're right or wrong. It's that if they tell you to do nothing and you do nothing, nothing happened.
Right.
If they tell you to take the risk and something blows up in your face, you can blame them. So your friends and family is not who I'd be going to for advice. I'd be finding the successful people who did what you're trying to do and saying, here's what I'm trying to do. What am I missing?
Yeah. Love that. Matt, bring us home. Closing thoughts. Where can they find you?
You can find me Lumberjack Landlord at 9 p.m. on Thursdays and doing and answering all of your questions about real estate and doing shenanigans like this. Here's how much I know about the algorithm and how powerful it is. When we would go out, a few buddies of mine, we would wait until somebody would leave the table. When they would leave the table, we would actually take their phone and we would look up all of the horrible, awful, grossest, most disgusting things that you can possibly look up on Instagram. And this is no joke. We do this all the time. So if you're around me, do not leave your phone unlocked. But we will go on there and we search for the worst, most disgusting, vile, nasty things that you could ever imagine. And you know what's really funny is that for the next, literally, we have people, they'll reach out to us and they'll be like, you're an asshole. And I'm like, course. I'm funny. So they will literally reach out. Yeah, they will literally reach. I mean, sometimes they're not mutually exclusive, but it is what it is. And so they'll reach out and they're like, dude, you have absolutely effed my algo. And I go, it's easily fixed.
Yeah.
Literally do a search for 20 things that you want to see and you will get nothing but that in your feed. So I can tell you firsthand that the algo works. It works exactly as it should. And if you're searching and seeking out negativity and searching and seeking out being fearful, here's what most entrepreneurs understand. Do they start out fearful? No, they're both bull in a china closet through the wall. You over time recognize that you don't have to go through the wall every single time in order to still be an amazingly successful entrepreneur. And you start to learn that there's better and smarter ways to do it. But the idea is in the very beginning, there is no fear because there is no understanding of what can happen to you. As you get later on, you get more fear that creeps in because it's now things are at risk. And that's what everybody fears. They fear losing the things that they built so hard to build. And that then they become fearful and then they start making other decisions that then completely reverse the course of their business. So what I would tell you is that the really successful entrepreneurs are ones that take the data, understand what that risk is, calculate that risk appropriately and move forward, but move forward boldly and not fearfully. Because if you're doing anything halfway, you will lose 100% of the time doing things halfway and fearful. So when you see that entrepreneur that's like, holy cow, that guy's got balls. Yeah, he probably does. Big, huge, massive ones. And was he afraid? Yeah, he was a little bit too, but he recognized it was risk, but that it was calculated and then he had to push through. And no matter what, just had to do the next thing and get on the other side.
Love it. Dion, where can they find you?
Right here on YouTube, Dion Talk Financial Freedom. And Matt, we used to do the same thing with the algorithm, but to a lesser degree. It was in the workplace, in the office, and you found the phone of somebody laying there. You would just go up to the phone, not even open it, and just start saying things like communication skills, hygiene products, whatever it took to make that person a better employee to work with.
Oh, that's funny. That's crazy. Folks, at the end of the day, this chart is accurate. The middle class is shrinking, but never forget the game is simple. The rich, the upper income has grown 50% in 50 years. I suggest you want to be a part of that. Join our school community, one rental at a time. It's where wealth builders go to grow and network. Nearly 400 amazing folks, including these two gentlemen and I. We will see you in there. Thanks, guys. Take care.
Ciao.
Thanks.